The most farthest western southern county. The southern county. You ever heard of Shikha County? I was born in James
because we certainly drank a lot of wine.
So actually, namaste everybody. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you everyone for coming here, and I'm very excited. And thank you to Cliff, Nelda, Jack, Dylan for opening their house and hearts to make this possible for all of us to be here together. I just wanted to share a very personal story briefly. My life growing up in the village, and then some of the problems that we face, or I used to face as a student, as a kid there, and then talk about some of the dreams that I have, or at least I have, and Cliff and I have talked about it. Share some of those dreams, and I will hand it off to Cliff so that he will at least show us a path to achieving those dreams going forward. English is a required class. Everybody has to take it. It's compulsory, and if you fail English class, you basically cannot graduate from high school. And it's the equivalent of GED here. We call it School Living Certificate Examination. It's like they call it Iron Gate. And especially for people who go to village schools, in public schools in the village, it's really tough. You learn English by memorization, and then you go take the exam. Most of them flunk, and then they try for a couple of years, and then basically they give up. If kids in the villages learn from these tools, and that would be so great. And I came across this Khan Academy, right? Have you come across this? That was what I spent all.
Khan Academy.
Yeah, it's basically there is one guy who quit investment analyst job, very lucrative job, and he started doing videos on his own, tutorials, teaching math, science, history, all sorts of topics. There are like over 2,000 videos, and if kids could get hold of these resources from these villages, wow, that would make a whole lot of difference. And that's why is this conversation about power and conversation about educating kids, empowering kids, letting them imagine a life other than being a soldier, being a Gurkha, being a farmer, kind of came into play. For that, power, reliable power seems to be like the foundation. Like it's a necessary thing for our dreams, all the dreams that we have to realize. When I was growing up, there was no role model to look up to, right? Nobody had done anything great or anything with education that that they had achieved. What's relevant for me? There was no one to look up to. And the idea is that if kids in the village interact with kids here, right? Like Jack, Dylan, my dad is a software engineer, like a chief technology officer, and my mom is a lawyer or a teacher, or you know, all this kind of things that they can share, and that will eventually indirectly let, my hope is kind of get these kids to imagine for themselves too. One of the things is seeing the possibility, and that happened to me when I went to Singapore. I was recruited when I was only 15, so I still didn't know much about it, and I went to Singapore, and that was the real world for me. When I saw the world, then I started seeing possibilities. What could I do? And that's when I started being serious about studies. But when you have to see the connection and see the possibility, then it makes a huge difference. And I think that's a motivation factor. So partnership with school in Seattle. So for my school, that's what I want to do. So get school here, connect with my school, get these kids interact with each other. They can actually currently UPrep and Nangi Himachali school, they are following a curriculum together. So that's and educational software. So Jack is learning French using software, language software, right? And it was you liked it, yeah. So there was no need of a physical kind of a teacher. There was just you learn at your own pace, right? And the exposure to the outside world. I think it's really important, and that's what changed my path. So these kids, I look at them, it's kind of makes you happy when you see them smile. And
TLAC is really framed out what it is that we're trying to do. The path is completely unknown, and it's always one step at a time, and it's always kind of fraught with questions and worries. But the dream that these kids could see a wider world and expand their horizons and live to see a style of life and evolution of their culture where there's more than just every day waking up and facing poverty and facing hunger and facing political unrest. It's so much different, you know, when you really try to put yourself into that situation. It's so much different than what we experience in this country and in this culture that it's almost it's a whole different planet. And so one of the things that is sort of deeply motivating for me about this project is just this idea of how can we create connections that help people live richer lives and more meaningful lives, and lives where they can reach their potential. It's a cool technology in that you can put it in place and it works. And one of the things that we really want to not do is we don't want to bring a bunch of stuff over to Nepal and leave it there and have it break a year from now and try to feel good about that. You know, we really want it to work. We want it to be there 25 years from now and have people that said, oh yeah, we've had power and now we're learning English and now we're doing all these other things. It makes sense economically. It's you know, it's high quality power, meaning you can run laptops and electronics off of it. Solar energy 101 starts with the sun. You know, pretty much all our power comes from the sun. All of the power that we use in one way or another. And so the way this guy will work is that we'll bring over there these kind of core components, the solar panels themselves, batteries, and things that turn the electricity into alternating current. These things can be heavy. So when we've looked at the system we want to build, one of the great things about solar power is you can scale it. We looked at microhydro, we looked at other ways that the power is generated in Nepal, and there are some significant issues with these other technologies. The big one is if you have need for more power, you basically have to build another system. And with solar power, it's great because you can add on panels, you can add on batteries, and we can scale this up over time. So we're starting somewhat modestly, but we want this to be something that'll work into the future. So we're going to scale it here with the click of a button. And we get more panels, and we get more batteries, and we get more stuff. What if we actually got 10 new laptop computers, which use much less energy, and we ran them for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and it turns out that we can do that even cheaper. These new laptops use much less energy. So the project that we're looking at right now brings 10 new laptops to the village and the power to run them. One of the things that's probably most exciting to me is that the fellow who runs the school, the Shikha school, he's going to donate $2,000 from his school's annual budget to help build the system. So he's in, he's in. He thinks it's a good thing, and he wants to do it. And then the company that Tilak and I work for, Knowledge Mosaic, has really gotten behind this project, and that's exciting. A lot of people there have made donations. We have also, Tilak's made a pretty big donation himself. We've also hooked up, I'm not sure if anybody's heard of the Namaste Children's Fund, but they are, this is a former piano student of Nelda's, a guy named Phil Crean and his wife Cora Edwards, and they have created a nonprofit that's working in northern Nepal to help build schools for young girls. And they allowed us to work with them on this project so that people can contribute to a 501c3. Nonprofits that are filling this gap in a really interesting way. There's a group down in the Bay Area called SamaSource, where this woman who was originally from India started this nonprofit which basically takes remote villages in India and Ghana and somewhere else in Southeast Asia, and they put digital infrastructure in place so that people in those villages can do basic level tasks like data entry and photo editing, and so they can then earn maybe $1 a day, $2 a day doing this work. But that money is capital, right? They can tuck that away. They can build that up over time. And now LinkedIn and Facebook and a bunch of top-tier Silicon Valley companies are hiring SamaSource to outsource work for them. It's fascinating. So they may have data entry going on in some village out in the middle of nowhere in rural India. And there's a lot of different ways to think about that. But the reality is that the people who now have that opportunity are so incredibly thankful for it, because they can take a next step in trying to achieve something that they couldn't have otherwise. So when we talk about this, and once you start to give kids an opportunity to have an education or learn some of these basic skills, there is another kind of a tier where it can help to bring income into their community, and they can build up capital. And it works at a lot of different levels. It improves healthcare, it improves opportunities for kids. So, but it's a great question, Jack, because the question is like, where do you go from here? That stuff's in. Pendulums, they swing around.
Your average is in person.
Are you from the state?
Not right on the lake, but up from it a little bit. Yeah, just
Oh, hi! Where we can send them off to the side while you get the book.
I just always he knows what
Oh, yeah?
he makes the special.
There's a car. You gonna get an able-bodied person to go help?
Sounds like you've spent some time.